Everything the public knew about these stars' backgrounds, families, and origins was completely fabricated by studios, and when the stars discovered the truth about their own manufactured identities, some never recovered from the shock. We'll uncover the leading man who invented a wife and son to hide his identity, and the ultimate movie queen who unknowingly married her own stepson. But first, the Irish heiress who was born in Bombay. This shattering reality begins with the elegant facade of Merle Oberon, the Irish heiress who was secretly born in Bombay. The image of Merle Oberon was one of untouchable elegance, an aristocratic British beauty hailing from Tasmania, Australia. This flawless facade, polished by the machinations of Hollywood's most meticulous studios, was a colossal, expensive lie. The truth was that the Oscar-nominated actress, who dazzled in films like Wuthering Heights, was born Estelle Merle O'Brien Thompson in Bombay, India, in 1911. Her biological mother, Constance, was a young woman of mixed descent, a background considered utterly unacceptable by the racial restrictions of Hollywood in the 1930s. To preserve her career, Merle and the studios concocted a new biography. They claimed Tasmania as her birthplace, a location chosen strategically because the island's birth records had conveniently been destroyed in a fire, making verification practically impossible. This fabrication required constant, paralyzing vigilance. Oberon spent her entire career in fear that someone from her past in India might recognize her and shatter the fiction. She endured painful skin treatments and insisted on specialized lighting on set, all in an effort to conceal the complexion that betrayed her true ancestry. For every public event, she spent hours in terror, waiting for the moment a shadow might expose her. Even her immediate family had their roles rewritten. She was raised believing her grandmother, Charlotte, was her mother, and her actual mother, Constance, was merely her older sister. This intricate web of deception meant Merle could never truly embrace or acknowledge her own family or origins. She maintained the lie even with her children, and throughout her entire lifetime, only revealing the painful truth in the 1970s. When she returned to Australia, the burden of this manufactured identity created an intensely vulnerable woman beneath the polished exterior, who lived with the profound loneliness of being unable to share her true self with anyone, even those closest to her. The most astonishing detail? The studio chose Tasmania because its records were destroyed in a fire, making their cover story ironclad. The Hollywood love goddess who erased her Latin soul. Her transformation was one of Hollywood's most notorious makeovers. But the studio's lie to make Rita Hayworth marketable was not just about color. It was about stripping her of her Latin identity to appease a puritanical America. The woman who became the ultimate American love goddess, the star whose very name epitomized glamour and temptation, began life as Margarita Carmen Cancino. Rita Hayworth was born in New York to a Spanish dancer, Eduardo Cancino, and a Ziegfeld Follies girl. She was a natural, immensely talented dancer, but studio executives, particularly Columbia Pictures' Harry Cohn, decreed that her Spanish ancestry made her too exotic for mainstream appeal. The studio demanded a complete, brutal transformation. Her naturally dark, beautiful hair was dyed the signature auburn that the world would come to adore, and her hairline was painstakingly raised through electrolysis, a painful procedure designed to make her features appear less Latin. Her name was changed to Rita Hayworth, and her background was simplified, downplaying her Spanish roots and erasing the dancer identity of her father. This identity theft was not merely cosmetic. While the public saw the sensual confidence of Gilda, Hayworth privately struggled with crippling insecurity rooted in the erasure of her true self and a traumatic childhood. Her father forced her to perform as his dance partner from the age of 12, and she endured physical mistreatment at his hands during these tours. She once lamented, "They go to bed with Gilda and wake up with me," underscoring the profound emotional distance between the manufactured icon and the vulnerable woman. The ultimate cruelty came later in life when she suffered from early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Even as her memory faded, she would sometimes revert to speaking Spanish, as if her true, suppressed identity was finally, heartbreakingly, breaking through the carefully constructed facade. The bachelor who invented a wife, son, and tragic past. The public believed he was a stoic widower whose life had been touched by war and loss. The truth was an elaborate, decades-long fabrication, designed to protect a secret that would have ruined him instantly. As the star of the immensely popular television series Perry Mason, Raymond Burr projected an unassailable image of integrity and moral fortitude. Off-screen, however, Burr maintained a monumental fiction for nearly 3 decades. Burr was a gay man, and in the discriminatory 1950s and 1960s, a confirmed homosexual identity meant immediate career destruction for a leading man. To explain his unmarried status, Burr fabricated a tragic history of loss. He claimed he had been married to a woman named Annette Sutherland, who was supposedly lost in a plane crash during World War II. He further embellished this by saying they had a young son who passed away from leukemia as a child. Both the wife and the son were complete, detailed fabrications, created solely to deflect questions about his bachelor life. The extent of this deception was astonishing. He gave poignant interviews providing dates and detailed anecdotes about these non-existent family members. This elaborate smokescreen allowed him to maintain a 35-year relationship with his male partner, Robert Benavides, known only to a tight circle of trusted friends. Burr's carefully constructed lie kept his career safe, but it came at the cost of being truly known. Yet, the individual who invented children he never had became a quiet, devoted benefactor to real children throughout his life, using his considerable earnings to support dozens of foster children and young people needing college tuition. His fabricated loss was transformed into a generous legacy, demonstrating the profound duality of his secret life. If you are finding yourself compelled by these shocking personal stories and the extraordinary price these stars paid to maintain the Golden Age illusion, we invite you to subscribe to Golden Age Files. We specialize in bringing you the full, complicated truth behind the legends, ensuring these complex human stories are not forgotten. The studios weren't the only ones fabricating history. Sometimes, to escape social ruin, it was the family itself that rewrote reality, creating a lie so complete that the star lived 30 years before discovering who his mother really was. The King of Cool and the sister who was actually his mother. He learned the devastating truth from a reporter at the age of 37. The person he called his sister was his biological mother, and the woman he called his mother was his grandmother. In 1974, Jack Nicholson, then 37 years old and established as one of Hollywood's most unconventional leading men, learned a stunning truth that restructured his entire past. The man who seemed utterly untroubled by societal norms had been unknowingly living a family lie for decades. He believed the woman who raised him, Ethel Mae Nicholson, was his mother, and her daughter June was his older sister. The reality was that June was his biological mother. June, unmarried, had become pregnant in 1937. To protect June and the family reputation from the intense stigma surrounding unwed motherhood in mid-century America, Ethel and the family chose to restructure reality, raising Jack as Ethel's son. The truth only came out when a Time magazine reporter uncovered the details while working on a profile of the rising star. The sudden knowledge felt like a fracture across the foundation of his entire past. His only connection to the truth was a reporter's notebook, forcing him to grieve a mother he thought was a sister and a grandmother he thought was a mother, without a single word of closure. The revelation forced him to reevaluate his entire childhood, highlighting the extraordinary lengths ordinary families would go to protect their reputation in that era. This unexpected discovery about his own identity may explain why Nicholson, despite his reputation as a Hollywood rebel, proved to be an intensely devoted and protective father to his own 6 children, striving to create a stable, albeit unconventional, family structure built on a love he may have lacked clear definition of in his own youth. The heartthrob who believed his grandma was his mom, the same family deception that haunted Jack Nicholson, also shaped the frantic, short life of one of America's most beloved singers. The lie drove him to live fast, believing he had no time left. The story of the manufactured family secret repeats itself with tragic urgency in the life of teen idol Bobby Darin. The charismatic singer who burst onto the scene with hits like Splish Splash and Mac the Knife presented an image of confident ambition. Like Nicholson, Darin grew up believing that Polly Casotto was his mother and Nina, Polly's daughter, was his older sister. The true story was that Nina had become pregnant at age 17 out of wedlock. To avoid the crushing shame and scandal of the 1930s, the family protected Nina's reputation by allowing Polly, Darin's grandmother, to raise him as her own son. Darin learned the truth from Nina herself in 1968, when he was in his 30s, married to actress Sandra Dee. The revelation devastated him. Already struggling with a weakened heart due to childhood rheumatic fever, the emotional shock exacerbated a profound identity crisis. Darin had already been warned since childhood that he would likely not survive past 30, and this prognosis fueled his relentless drive and ambition. The family lie compounded his sense of racing against time. He abandoned his polished image, grew a mustache, and shifted his focus to folk music and political activism, attempting to find an authentic self. When he passed away in 1973, at age 37 during routine heart surgery, he had lived longer than predicted, but the family revelation had robbed him of precious time to reconcile his identity. His final years were marked by a poignant search for truth, trying to understand the woman who had sacrificed her identity as his mother to protect his future. The silent screen star, shaped by a secret language. His ability to transform his face into 1,000 different masks was legendary, but the reason for his unparalleled pantomime skills was a hidden family reality he desperately protected from the public's judgment. Known as the Man of 1,000 Faces, Lon Chaney achieved immortality in silent film classics like The Phantom of the Opera. His extraordinary genius lay in his ability to transform himself through elaborate makeup and physical contortion, communicating profound emotion without uttering a single word. What audiences never knew was that the source of his unique talent was not just performance training, but a profound family secret he fiercely protected. Both of Chaney's parents were deaf. Born in 1883, young Lon grew up in a household where sign language and nonverbal expression were the primary means of communication. He served as his parents' interpreter, learning from a young age how to communicate complex feelings through his face and body alone. In the early 1900s, disabilities were often met with ignorance and pity, and Chaney was terrified that revealing his parents' deafness would expose them to mockery or exploitation, which is why he refused to discuss it publicly. This fierce devotion meant he maintained a profound silence about his origins, allowing the world to believe his skill was simply a technical ability. His ability to portray the misunderstood outcast and the monster roles that required immense physical empathy was profoundly influenced by his childhood experiences of seeing his parents navigate a world that often ignored them. This was a lie of noble protection, masking the very truth that made him a cinematic genius. The little girl who never knew her father's true struggle. The beloved star's family moved across the country under mysterious circumstances when she was 4, fleeing a truth about her father's secret life that would remain hidden until decades after her passing. Judy Garland, forever cherished as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, experienced a childhood marred by family instability and a secret she would not fully comprehend until after her parents were gone. Born Frances Ethel Gumm in 1922, her family left their hometown in Minnesota and abruptly moved to California when she was 4 years old. The public explanation was that they were seeking better show business opportunities for their talented daughters. The private truth was that they were fleeing a growing scandal surrounding her father, Frank Gumm. Frank was a gay man, and persistent rumors about his encounters with young individuals in their town were threatening to destroy the family's reputation. In an era where such identities were completely unacceptable, the move was a desperate act of preservation. The secret strained Frank's marriage to Ethel, leading to constant arguments and separations, leaving young Judy confused and insecure. Frank favored Judy, but their bond was complicated by his double life and the immense pressure to maintain appearances. Her MGM image of the innocent, all-American girl concealed the reality of a childhood built on emotional turmoil and a truth that could not be spoken. Frank passed away when Judy was 13, taking many of the secrets with him. The loss of her father, combined with the instability created by the hidden life, profoundly shaped Garland's lifelong search for security and affection. The tragic siren, whose true identity was stolen for stardom. In the years before her catastrophic downfall, the bombshell actress carried the crushing weight of a secret ancestry that Hollywood had stolen from her, believing the audience was not ready for her true self. Clara Bow, the it girl of the 1920s, projected an image of a carefree flapper, a sassy symbol of the jazz age. The studios fabricated this persona to conceal one of Hollywood's most horrific backstories of poverty and trauma. Born in Brooklyn in 1905, Bow endured a childhood marked by instability and abuse. Her mother, Sarah, attempted to inflict injury upon her during a psychotic episode, and Clara later disclosed she was physically mistreated by her father, Robert. As her star rose, studios meticulously erased this painful past, crafting a false biography of a spirited, fun-loving girl. This deception left Bow battling severe anxiety, insomnia, and likely post-traumatic stress disorder, conditions that were neither understood nor treated at the time. The contrast between her dazzling public facade and her private agony was devastating, leading to a mental health decline and her early retirement at age 28. Decades later, biographers finally revealed the tragic truth. Yet, even during her struggles, Bow demonstrated remarkable compassion, personally answering hundreds of fan letters and quietly supporting local families in need during her retirement, demonstrating a deep empathy that grew from her own painful experiences. The boy who was bought in a scandalous baby mill. Behind the flawless image of the devoted Hollywood mother was a secret that implicated her in one of the darkest adoption scandals of the era, involving a notorious baby broker who stole children. Joan Crawford meticulously crafted the image of the dedicated, disciplined mother to her 4 adopted children. Fan magazines showcased her glamorous, orderly family life, presenting her as a model of maternal care, while her eldest daughter, Christina, later revealed the shocking, abusive behavior behind closed doors in the memoir Mommy Dearest. Another, equally dark secret later emerged that stained Crawford's maternal legacy with a societal crime. It was revealed that Crawford's youngest children, Kathy and Cindy, may have been adopted through the notorious Georgia Tan. Tan was a baby broker in Tennessee who ran a black market adoption ring, systematically exploiting and essentially stealing children for profit. While there is no evidence that Crawford knew of Tan's criminal activities, her adoption of these children connected her indirectly to one of the most egregious acts of exploitation against children in the 20th century. This revelation added another layer of complexity to her carefully constructed image, contrasting the public narrative of a loving star, giving a home to orphans with a hidden truth that exposed the shadowy side of adoption networks in that period. The wholesome icon who was forced to deny his daughter. This secret was one of Hollywood's most open secrets, but the official story remained a lie for decades. For the star, it was about protecting his image. For the mother, it was about protecting her faith. In 1935, while filming The Call of the Wild, 2 of Hollywood's biggest stars, Clark Gable and Loretta Young, began an affair that resulted in an unplanned pregnancy. Gable was then married, and Young's image was one of pristine Catholic virtue. The scandal would have destroyed both careers instantly. Young devised an elaborate theatrical plan to cover up the birth. She secretly traveled to Europe, gave birth to a daughter, and placed her in an orphanage. Months later, she returned to America, publicly announced she was adopting a baby girl, and named her Judy. For years, Young maintained this fiction, lying to the world and to Judy, who grew up confused about her resemblance to Gable. Gable never publicly acknowledged Judy, although they met once when Judy was 15. The deception was driven by Young's profound Catholic guilt and her desperate need to protect her career, and Gable's fear of shattering his wholesome image. The secret remained intact for decades, with Hollywood insiders speculating but never confirming the truth. In 1994, Judy Lewis published her autobiography, detailing her confrontation with Young in 1966, where Young finally admitted the truth. This was not a quick lie. It was a carefully orchestrated, 60-year deception that illustrates the moral compromises forced upon stars to maintain their idealized public personas. The studio's most elaborate sham marriage. His agent called it the arrangement. It was a contractually obligated fiction to protect Hollywood's greatest leading man from a truth that would have ended his career, his identity. In the 1950s, Rock Hudson was the quintessential Hollywood leading man, tall, handsome, and marketed as the ideal bachelor. In reality, Hudson was a gay man, forced to live a lie to survive in the deeply homophobic studio system. In 1955, when rumors about his orientation threatened to expose him and ruin his career, his powerful agent, Henry Wilson, arranged a sham marriage. The studio provided the bride, Wilson's secretary, Phyllis Gates. The union was entirely staged for public consumption and to silence the press. The marriage ended in divorce 3 years later, having served its purpose, and Hudson resumed his secret life, maintaining a heterosexual persona publicly while living authentically in private. His true identity would only be dramatically revealed in 1985 when he publicly announced his diagnosis with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, AIDS. His final act, though forced by circumstance, became one of unexpected heroism. He became the first major celebrity to put a human face on the disease, leading to a doubling of donations to AIDS research almost overnight. The man who had hidden his true self for decades used his final months to help save others, enduring the same secret struggles he had. The starlet forced to choose between her love and her career. She was cast as the epitome of wholesome virtue, the nun, the saintly lover. But a forbidden love exposed her as a woman of passion, leading to an exile enforced by the moral judgment of the U.S. Senate. To American audiences in the 1940s, Ingrid Bergman embodied wholesomeness and virtue, famous for her noble roles in Casablanca and The Bells of Street Marys. Her image was the carefully crafted antithesis of the typical Hollywood bombshell, which made her fall from grace all the more dramatic. In 1949, while still married to her first husband, Bergman traveled to Italy to work with director Roberto Rossellini. They fell passionately in love, and Bergman became pregnant with Rossellini's child while still legally married. When news of the affair and the pregnancy broke, the public reaction was vicious and unprecedented. Bergman was publicly denounced from the floor of the United States Senate, where one senator called her a powerful influence for evil and Hollywood's apostle of degradation. Churches called for boycotts of her films, and her fan mail turned to expressions of intense disapproval overnight. The backlash was so severe that Bergman was effectively exiled from Hollywood for 7 years. This punishment far exceeded the crime by modern standards and was glaringly a demonstration of gender bias, as male stars routinely engaged in similar behavior without consequence. Bergman eventually returned to Hollywood in 1956 with Anastasia, winning her second Academy Award, a symbolic moment of public forgiveness. Her exile, though professionally devastating, gave her an unexpected period of personal growth and artistic freedom in Europe, proving she chose love and authentic self-expression over the rigid moral constraints of her American persona. The mother forced to institutionalize her injured child. Her dazzling beauty concealed a personal tragedy so profound that it led to her own institutionalization. The secret was the truth about her daughter's disability and how a thoughtless fan's act caused it. Jean Tierney, the celebrated star of Laura and Heaven Can Wait, maintained an image of pristine elegance that masked a profound, guilt-ridden family tragedy. In 1943, during the height of World War II, Tierney, then pregnant, dedicated time to volunteering at the Hollywood Canteen, a popular gathering place for servicemen. It was during one of these charitable visits that a pivotal, heartbreaking event occurred. A fan, who had broken quarantine to meet the glamorous star, unknowingly infected Tierney with rubella, German measles. As a direct result of this infection during gestation, her daughter, Daria, was born with severe disabilities, including deafness, partial blindness, and significant developmental delays. The impact of this condition was immediate and overwhelming. In an era with little understanding of or support for congenital disabilities, Tierney and her husband, the designer Oleg Cassini, faced immense pressure, fearing the intense public backlash and the destruction of Tierney's carefully cultivated image. They made the agonizing decision to privately place Daria in an institution, a decision kept absolutely hidden from the public. Tierney's mental health plummeted under the weight of this secret, leading to a breakdown. She was consumed by guilt, a feeling intensified by the surreal knowledge that her own fame and an anonymous fan's thoughtless action were the direct cause of her daughter's suffering. Her struggle led to multiple hospitalizations and the endurance of numerous electroshock treatments, a brutal therapy that damaged her memory, robbing her of significant portions of her past, including happy moments with her other daughter, Christina. The cruel irony of the situation deepened years later when Tierney learned that the same fan who had caused the infection had casually mentioned their meeting. This knowledge fueled her immense, complicated grief. The secret she carried, the guilt over Daria's condition, and the emotional toll of the mental health treatments became the defining, hidden struggle of her life. Tierney channeled this profound sorrow into her art, but it left a permanent mark. Her story became the inspiration for Agatha Christie's novel, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, though few connected the fictional tragedy to the real-life pain of the Hollywood star. Tierney eventually found a measure of peace and stability, but her narrative remains one of the most painful illustrations of how personal heartbreak was forced into secrecy and silence under the relentless, unforgiving pressure of Hollywood fame. The actor who didn't know which man was his son's father. In 1970, Academy Award-winning actress Patty Duke found herself in a chaotic period of extreme personal instability, a period later understood to be directly linked to her then undiagnosed bipolar disorder. At just 23, Duke became pregnant while involved with 3 different men in rapid succession, creating a convoluted paternity puzzle that haunted her family for decades. The confusion began with teen heartthrob Desi Arnaz, Jr., son of Lucille Ball, whose relationship was widely publicized but fraught with disapproval from his mother due to the age difference. Duke then briefly became involved with actor John Astin. In the midst of this turbulent and emotionally unmoored period, and in what she later described as a manic episode, Duke impulsively married Michael Tell, a man she barely knew, in a ceremony that lasted just 13 days before being annulled. The proximity of this brief marriage to the pregnancy only compounded the mystery. When her son, Sean, was born in 1971, Duke publicly identified John Astin as the biological father. Astin, in a remarkable act of devotion, divorced his wife, married Duke, and raised Sean as his own son, providing stability in Sean's chaotic early life. The identity confusion, however, was not over. Years later, during Sean's adolescence, Duke told him she now believed Desi Arnaz, Jr. was his biological father. A startling, confusing revelation for the young man struggling to define his place in the world. The decades-long mystery finally received a definitive public resolution years later when DNA testing revealed that Michael Tell, the husband of 13 Days, was, in fact, Sean's biological father. Duke's erratic and often public behavior during this period was ultimately rooted in her undiagnosed mental illness. Her eventual diagnosis of bipolar disorder in the 1980s explained the manic impulsiveness that created the paternity dilemma. She later became a courageous and vocal advocate for mental health awareness, using her own struggles to help destigmatize the disorder. This complex truth shows how even Oscar winners were deeply vulnerable to personal crises, and the immense burden of confusion placed upon the children caught in the wake of Hollywood's tumultuous, secretive relationships. Sean Astin, who found fame as an actor himself, would later declare that regardless of the biological truth, John Astin would always be his true father, a poignant demonstration of the power of love and commitment over genetics. These 18 stories demonstrate the extraordinary duality of life under the studio system. Which of these revelations, the fake marriages, the hidden children, or the identity swaps, surprised you the most? Leave a comment below and tell us what Golden Age Hollywood star or topic you would like us to cover next. Your comments shape our future explorations of classic cinema's hidden history. The stoic cowboy who paid for a secret abortion. He was the embodiment of American virtue, but his affair with a young starlet resulted in a pregnancy that, due to the studio's terror of scandal, was brutally ended in a dangerous, illegal procedure. In the late 1940s, Gary Cooper was the stoic, laconic embodiment of American masculinity, a celebrated figure whose image stood for quiet integrity and moral strength. This persona was highly protected, especially since he was happily married to socialite Veronica Rocky Cooper. The delicate balance of his public life was threatened when he began an intense affair with Patricia Neal, a rising star 25 years his junior. While they were filming The Fountainhead in 1949, their passionate, secretive relationship was meticulously kept out of the papers through the vigilant intervention of powerful studio publicists and the complicity of the press, which largely respected an unwritten code of silence regarding major stars' indiscretions. The situation became critically dangerous in 1950 when Neal discovered she was pregnant. For Neal, an out-of-wedlock pregnancy in the intensely moralistic atmosphere of post-war Hollywood could have instantly ended her career and subjected her to intense public shame and professional blacklisting. For Cooper, revealing his infidelity and the resulting pregnancy would have shattered his carefully constructed, wholesome image, the very foundation of his immense appeal and value to the studios. The risk was deemed too high for both their careers. Under intense pressure from Cooper and facing the devastating reality of her situation alone, Neal made the agonizing decision to terminate the pregnancy, which was both illegal and extremely hazardous at the time. Cooper used his powerful connections and considerable resources to arrange the procedure. Neal later described the event as the saddest thing that ever happened to me and her greatest regret. The emotional aftermath was not contained by the silence the studios enforced. Cooper, a practicing Catholic, was tormented by profound guilt, viewing the act as a personal failure. Neal suffered from severe, lasting depression following the operation, a pain she was forced to endure in private. The drama escalated when Cooper's wife, Rocky, discovered the full extent of the affair. She confronted Neal directly, allegedly threatening to ruin her career if the relationship continued, a threat that was entirely credible given Hollywood's structure. Cooper ultimately succumbed to the pressure, discontinuing the affair and recommitting to his marriage, even undergoing a religious recommitment to Catholicism to ease his conscience and restore his public image. Neal, heartbroken and professionally wounded, was forced to leave Hollywood temporarily for Broadway, attempting to escape the painful memories and the suffocating secret. The entire episode was suppressed by the studio system for decades, with only vague, whispered rumors ever reaching the public. The true personal costs, however, were profound and enduring. Neal later revealed that she believed complications stemming from the illegal procedure may have contributed to her inability to carry pregnancies to term in her subsequent marriage to writer Roald Dahl, adding a layer of permanent tragedy to the secret. Cooper, for his part, never fully recovered from the guilt, becoming increasingly withdrawn and melancholy in the final years of his life. Only in the 1980s, long after Cooper's passing, did Neal begin speaking openly about the relationship and its painful conclusion, offering a harrowing glimpse behind the moral illusions Hollywood so fiercely protected. This entire secret demonstrates the ruthless power of the studios and the tragic personal costs, especially to the women involved, of maintaining an impossible standard of moral propriety. The silent screen genius and his underage brides. He made the world laugh, but behind the camera, the comedian maintained a disturbing pattern of exploitation, marrying his young partners in hurried ceremonies to escape criminal prosecution. Charlie Chaplin created the beloved Little Tramp character, a global symbol of universal compassion that made audiences worldwide laugh and weep. Off-screen, however, the comedy genius maintained a disturbing pattern involving relationships with very young women, a pattern the studios worked diligently to downplay and cover up. In 1924, 35-year-old Chaplin became involved with 16-year-old actress Lita Grey, who had been cast in The Gold Rush. When Grey became pregnant, Chaplin faced potential criminal charges under California law due to her age, a crisis that could have swiftly destroyed his career and led to severe legal consequences. To avoid prosecution, he hastily arranged a private marriage in Mexico. This was not a romance. According to Grey's later divorce filings, Chaplin had initially pressured her to undergo an illegal termination of the pregnancy. When she refused, the marriage was arranged primarily to avoid legal consequences, not out of love or commitment. The relationship quickly deteriorated after the birth of their 2 sons, with Grey detailing Chaplin's controlling and demanding behavior in her divorce filings. 3 years later, a 50-page complaint that shocked the public and made sensational headlines, yet still failed to reveal the full legal urgency behind the marriage itself. The full extent of his behavior toward young women, which included a later, similar marriage to 16-year-old Una O'Neill, was meticulously managed by studio publicists and suppressed in official biographies for decades. Despite his personal failings, Chaplin's artistry created some of cinema's most powerful social commentary. His later films, like The Great Dictator and Modern Times, showed an individual deeply concerned with social justice, films that championed the oppressed and powerless. The irony remains profound. The man who exploited vulnerable young women in his private life created art that called for social justice. The Hollywood siren who married her former stepson. A secret so scandalous it sounds like a film noir plot. After her divorce from a director, the femme fatale later married his son, a truth that, when revealed, finally ended her career in a blaze of notoriety. Gloria Grahame captivated audiences as the sultry femme fatale in classics like The Big Heat and The Bad and the Beautiful, a performance for which she won an Academy Award. Her on-screen persona was one of seductive danger and profound vulnerability, qualities that mirrored the self-destructive chaos of her private life. Her off-screen reality contained a truth so shocking it exceeded any film plot she ever starred in, a secret that required the mobilization of the studio system's most ruthless fixers to contain. The trouble began in 1948, when Grahame married director Nicholas Ray, her second husband. Ray was a respected, yet tumultuous, figure in Hollywood, and their marriage was marked by instability. The circumstances surrounding their separation were explosive and carefully shrouded in rumor. In 1951, the relationship imploded when Ray allegedly returned to their home unexpectedly and discovered Grahame in an intimate relationship with his 13-year-old son from a previous marriage, Tony Ray. This discovery led to their immediate separation and a divorce soon after. But the true, a horrifying reason that the sophisticated adult star had become involved with her prepubescent stepson was kept strictly confidential by the studio and powerful Hollywood fixers. The studios successfully framed the separation as merely irreconcilable differences, maintaining the pristine facade required for Grahame's ascendant career. Grahame, who had grown up in an emotionally distant family, seemed to constantly search for stability and acceptance, often seeking out relationships that mimicked the dysfunction she knew. This search led her to a third marriage, to writer Cy Howard, which soon ended. But the story, incredibly, took its darkest turn 9 years later. After her divorce from Howard, Grahame, then 37 years old, reconnected with Tony Ray, who was by then a 22-year-old adult. The emotional bond, born of a complex, forbidden past, reignited. In 1960, Grahame and Tony married in a secret ceremony across the border in Tijuana, Mexico, consciously hiding the union from the industry and the public. This extraordinary situation, a star marrying her former teenage stepson, remained completely hidden from the public for years, a shocking testament to the vast power of the studios and Grahame's own intense efforts at self-preservation to bury even the most outrageous secrets. The revelation of this clandestine marriage only came out during a bitter public custody battle between Grahame and Cy Howard over their daughter in 1962. When the press finally discovered that Grahame's fourth husband was her former stepson, the carefully constructed privacy shield surrounding her life was instantly, violently shattered. The news created a scandal so immense it dwarfed all previous Hollywood indiscretions. Grahame's carefully crafted persona of the glamorous, if unstable, movie queen collapsed completely. She was immediately blacklisted by major studios, who could no longer risk associating their brand with such profound notoriety. This public outcry completely ended her Hollywood career. Despite the professional consequences, Grahame's relationship with Tony Ray lasted until 1974, spanning 14 years. The profound cost of this hidden life was that her film career never recovered, forcing her into work in television, low-budget films, and eventually the theater. The notoriety of the marriage permanently overshadowed her legitimate artistic achievements. Those who knew Grahame often described her as intensely vulnerable, almost childlike beneath her sophisticated exterior, a woman whose tumultuous personal choices stemmed from a lifetime spent searching for a security she never found. Her tragic final act, in a way, was the public exposure of her deepest vulnerability, demonstrating the severe and unforgiving consequences when Hollywood's promise of protection ultimately failed. The truth, as you can see, is far more complex than the silver screen allows. If these deep dives into the lives of Hollywood's complex, resilient figures resonate with you, please show your support by giving this video a like and sharing it with fellow classic movie enthusiasts. It helps us keep the torch lit for the great legends of the Golden Age. The bombshell who was secretly a genius inventor. Hollywood dismissed her as merely a beautiful face, never knowing that the source of her restlessness and brilliance was a scientific mind that developed technology that would eventually power Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. To the world, Hedy Lamarr was simply one of Hollywood's most beautiful women, a glamorous Austrian actress who starred in epic productions like Samson and Delilah. She was consistently dismissed by the industry and the press as merely the bombshell. But behind her stunning facade lay one of the most brilliant scientific minds of the 20th century, a truth that would not be fully appreciated until decades after her passing. Born Hedwig Kiesler, her early life was marked by a dramatic escape from an oppressive marriage to arms dealer Fritz Mandl in Europe. Her husband's sophisticated dinner parties, attended by military leaders and Nazi officials, inadvertently gave the young woman a crucial insider's insight into the fundamental weaknesses of military communication systems and torpedo guidance. This knowledge fueled her intense intellectual restlessness. Upon arriving in America, she threw herself into both her film career and her private scientific pursuits. During World War II, while acting by day and upholding her glamorous studio image, Lamarr spent her evenings working tirelessly on invention. She was deeply motivated by a desire to contribute to the war effort against the regime she had fled. Working with avant-garde composer George Antheil, she developed a frequency-hopping system. This system was designed to prevent the jamming of torpedo guidance systems, ensuring the weapon could hit its target without external interference. The process involved synchronizing a radio transmitter and receiver by using a mechanism similar to a player piano roll, allowing the signal to rapidly jump between different radio frequencies. In 1942, Lamarr and Antheil successfully received U.S. patent number 2,292,387 for their secret communication system. The tragic irony, however, is that her revolutionary invention, which would later form the technical foundation for modern technologies like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS, was completely ignored during the war and during her lifetime simply because she was just an actress, incapable of serious scientific contribution. The Navy refused to implement the technology. This lifelong lifelong dismissal of her intellect was a cruel secret of underestimation. The patent eventually expired before the technology's true value was recognized in the 1950s and 1960s, meaning Lamarr never received financial compensation for a technology that would eventually be worth billions of dollars. She spent her later years increasingly isolated, struggling financially while the world unknowingly utilized the fruits of her genius. The woman dismissed as a pretty face had actually laid the groundwork for the digital age, a fact that was a profound, lifelong tragedy hidden behind her cinematic glamour. These 18 stories represent the extraordinary price of fame in an era defined by controlled fiction. The burden of maintaining these deceptions was enormous. Many of these beloved stars lived with constant anxiety about exposure, turning to various substances or suffering from profound isolation, unable to share their true selves with the world. The psychological impact was perhaps most devastating for those who had to deny the fundamental aspects of their identities, their ancestry, their orientation, or even their own children. When we watch the classic films from Hollywood's golden age, we are seeing not just the performances these actors gave on screen, but the profound human drama they maintained off-screen as well, often at tremendous personal cost. The truth about these manufactured lives has emerged over the decades, forcing us to reevaluate our understanding of these iconic figures. Rather than diminishing their artistry, these revelations have added extraordinary depth to our appreciation of their achievements. The very pain, duality, and resilience they developed in secret likely informed the depth and nuance of their performances. The stars of Hollywood's golden age shine no less brightly for having been revealed as complex, beautifully flawed human beings. If anything, knowing the immense struggles behind the glamour makes their artistic achievements all the more remarkable. They achieved global fame while fighting personal battles that would have caused severe ruin to lesser individuals. Their perseverance is the final, powerful truth. And so, we close the curtain on these 18 extraordinary, complicated lives. The stars of Hollywood's golden age shine no less brightly for having been revealed as complex, beautifully flawed human beings. If anything, knowing the immense personal price they paid to uphold the illusion only deepens our respect for their artistry and their resilience. If you found yourself compelled by these previously untold histories and the full human drama behind the silver screen, please consider subscribing to Golden Age Files. It's the best way to ensure you never miss our next deep dive into the secrets, glamour, and enduring magic of classic cinema. We would also be honored if you would give this video a like and share it with fellow enthusiasts. Tell us in the comments which revelations surprised you the most, and which Golden Age icon should we explore next. Until our next journey into Hollywood's past, thank you for watching.